Welcome to another episode of Driving to the Res with your favorite hosts,
Larry
and Inelia. Yay!
Yay, good to hear you, honey.
Oh, you too. We sound like we have colds.
Sounds like we're in a cave. Also,
yeah,
voices are a bit off.
Yeah, we've had the flu-like symptoms. Well, actually worse than flu-like symptoms.
Oh yeah, we did.
For over a week now. For about a week now, I think.
For a week.
Yeah, for a week. Yeah, it wasn't very good. We'll talk about why and what we think about that on the second hour.
Yeah.
This week. But this week, actually, we have something really special for you. After the Pure Heart meeting,
after sitting in Pure Heart.
Yes, after we sat in Pure Heart last Sunday.
Which maybe I think it's reasonable to say what that means, because most people, I think, assume that means a meditation or something.
Yeah, a lot of people think that's a meditation, but it isn't. It's just sitting there with the intention or having the experience of Pure Heart for an hour. Right? And you can sit with others, or you can sit by yourself, or you can meditate if you want. You can draw, you can knit, you can, just sit though and be with it and hold that intent and hold that energy for 1 hour. We do that once a week, every Sunday at 11 Pacific. But anyways, after that meeting last Sunday, we had a conversation of some information, conversation with Gaia, basically. And the people involved in the conversation itself were deemed to be interesting enough to share with you. So Sandra's done a lot of work putting together 3 or 4 recordings to get the best sound. And this is what we're going to present next. What do you think, honey?
Excellent.
All right. See you on the other side. So, the past week mostly, it's been really fascinating because I've been working on cutting back the brush at the Hill House. And the trees and the blackberries and all that have an energy that surprised me, because it was, especially the blackberries, they're very, very sentient. And often they want to say hi, right? But how do they say hi? They grab onto you and they scratch you and, and they go, oh, hi. But many people can misinterpret that to mean, I don't want you to cut me, or, just go away. I'm defending myself, right? But that's an interpretation. Because I tapped into it the very first time. Normally I will talk to them and say, this is what I'm doing. And they're going, okay. And they kind of a little bit move out of the way when I'm walking by, But a couple of times, one of them would grab me and I would like, whoa, what's going on? I'm not paying attention to you. I'm not talking to you right now. That type of disconnect. And they just wanted to connect. And as I was cutting, the thought came through of, maybe they're upset, I'm killing them and all this type of stuff. And when I tapped into it, it was, first of all, that something I didn't know was that blackberries and several of the other plants that I was cutting down are invasive species in this area. They're not originally from here. They were brought in. But that wasn't the energy of, oh, you're bad, we have to cut you all. It was more like an exploratory energy that I've only seen before in humans. Now, in the third book of the Return series, I'm going to explore what's the role of plants and humans, which basically is really exciting, right? But as I was tapping into that, are you upset that I'm cutting you down and killing you? It responded in a way that said, what do you mean killing? What is that? I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And then I tapped into it. And for the blackberry bush, it was as though I was cutting the very tip of hair. One hair in my head. Right, here's my head full of hair. And one hair, right? And then I would cut a tiny little tip of that one hair. That's what I was doing. Right, so maybe the forest, maybe it's like the tips of 5 or 6 hairs, right? And it was like, wow, that is really fascinating to me. It's not something that I would think of as a human being, right? And then the other part of it was Larry and I had been looking at what to do with the forest and the land. We have the forest guide came up, the same one that went to Fossil Beach. And he said to me, okay, so do you have plans? Do you want to achieve something in your land, or shall I just do my thing? And I said, well, I don't know, just do your thing. But I was there when he arrived, and he said, well, do you have any plans? Shall I just do my thing? And I said, actually, I do have plans. I want more for the forest here to become more supportive of life. I want it to become like we can have produce from the forest, like mushrooms or berries and more life, right? And he said, oh, great, I love it. That's exactly how I feel about the forest. And I'm going to tell you exactly what to do so you can bring more variety of local plants so that the birds, the songbirds here are beautiful, but a lot of the forests, they're incompatible with them. So we can create an environment that brings them in, and they bring this and they bring that, and then the other comes in and blah, blah, blah. He was super excited, right? Super excited. So part of then, a couple of conversations Larry and I have had up there is, he says, okay, so we're going to cut all those trees here and there and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, why don't we read the instructions he gave us? That does include cutting down trees, right? Don't get me wrong. And for the view. But he tells us how and when and which and what to plant there to bring in the animals and whatever's, right? And then, so we're having that conversation back and forth. And then I was tapping into Gaia and thinking, well, what do you want? Right? And she said, I want to support you. And I said, well, what do you want? I want to support you. She says, well, what do you want? I want to support you. So, yeah, but what do you want? And then I sent her a picture of the forest that feels alive and vibrant, full of animals and good for people. And, the people had talked about they go into the forest and years of stress and illnesses and sicknesses just vanish. I mean, there's reports all over the internet about this. And she said, oh, right, yeah. So I was supporting your light-dark experience on the planet. I'm not talking about me and Inelia Benz, right? I'm talking about us, right? The humanity aspects of this existence. And then there are all the other animals and creatures on the planet. And so that's why it looks a little bit like a bad haircut, the Earth right now. A lot of areas look like a bad haircut or a bad hair day even, right? But it's like the energy, the essence and the life force, if we allow it, it will pop back up. So I said, well, what do you want? What do you mean by I want to support you? Right? Do you want to support everybody who's still choosing the like that paradigm, or you're supporting the grooms and brides of Gaia, or the high frequency paradigm? What is it? And she expressed in a way that was really fascinating. She expressed the bad hair day gone. Right? She expressed that she really wants Earth to have its original path, right? Before we decided to have a dark experience. And that path was that we and the plants and the animals, but in particular, she's really particular about humans because we are a new sentiency in this universe of a physical body, a soul, and plants. So plants are part of humanity, right? This is what's going to be revealed in book 3 as well. So from that perspective, she wanted us to step out of that light-dark paradigm and that disempowered state or that passive state and really become the environment that I suppose we could call it heaven or something that she had agreed and was excited to accomplish here. And to have it being supportive. What does she want to do? To support us, right? So that in that sense, supportive of our physical body elementals, our souls, and our plants and our trees. The other part that was also fascinating, that she reiterated the fact that the plants and the physical body elementals and even the souls that are on Earth right now are from dozens and dozens of different planets. And she has the capacity and ability and the willingness to support the flourishing of that mix. Right? It's almost like making a cake. You have flour, you have eggs, you have water, you have sugar and salt and whatever else, vanilla, chocolate chips or whatever, right? And they're all separate in separate planets, but you combine them and you can make a mess if you combine it wrong, or you can make a beautiful cake if you combine it properly and then cook it properly and everything else. So that's how she expressed it in that way. And I said, well, what about things like the lack of life force on our food chain, like that one that we are using as modern people? And what about sunlight? Because sunlight's not compatible with the human body. That's all we need to protect it all the time from the sun, right? There's certain times of the day when it is supportive and the rest of the time it isn't. So, it was like an exploration of the evolution of dynamics that affect the Earth. And I said, well, are we going to have a change of sun again because there was one before? Are we going to get a new sun, or what's going to happen? And that part was either we become sovereign enough and adaptive enough that we are not affected by the negative rays of the sun, negative in for us, not for anything else. I mean, the sun is not negative, right? Or we manifest a change of sun as a human collective. So it's up to us, right? And then that went for everything, like the water or the food chain aspect of lifelessness that we're not ingesting, and time, linear time, how does it go, right? But there was as we were discussing this, there was a really deep sense of excitement. Excited like that, right? Super excitement. From the perspective of, oh, you can hear. Oh, you understand it. Oh, okay, cool. It's almost like, as a mother, you would talk to your kid, when they're toddlers, and they completely ignore you because they haven't got a clue what you're saying, right? So you might say, pick up your toys after you're done, to a 9-month-old, and they look at you going, what the hell are you talking about? I like your voice, right? And then suddenly, at age 1 or 2, whatever's, they look at you and they pick up their toys and put it in a box. And you go, what the hell just happened? What? The kid understands everything? What? Oh my gosh. So you get super excited because there's a new level of collaboration and co-creation that you can have once you hear it. So some of the aspects of that communication is something, of course, like during our pure heart, we're expanding an awareness and really dropping the victim aggressor stuff with regards to the planet, to other people, to the sun, to the soil, to the food chain, to all the animals that decide to be victim aggressors on the planet, and really step into that aliveness and, that being in that space of this is heaven, and I'm the creator of it. In a way, I am is not really accurate, but if you think of I am as in the human collective and the plants and the Gaia in that sense.
So in the pure heart energy, Gaia will support the manifestation of what we want to experience.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to dream what our experience is going to be.
Right.
But we need the pure heart to activate the experience, expanding and growing.
Yeah.
I can feel that really strongly.
Yeah.
I just got to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when we look at, and now I just have to do it, or now we have to do it, there's energies of, moats and crocodiles getting there. There's the physical energy. There's the psychic energy or the mental energies. And all of those that can be kind of, some of them are stretched so tight, it's like a rubber band that's stretched so tight that it kind of loses its bounceity, And it's more like, okay, so I got myself to that spot and I know I can reverse it, right? And I know I can do this. So, yeah, it's more than just knowing, like Hobie said. Now I have to do it. And we're not alone. We don't have to do it alone. But, yeah, and then Larry and I were driving through this road, and there's a spot where there's a line on the road. There's not a physical drawn line, but there's a line of energy, a frequency that changes radically, where the national forest begins and the commercial forest ends. And that line is almost solid, right? You feel it when you cross that line. The energy is so utterly different. So one of them is a better hair day, right? And the other side is a really bad hair day. But it's that relevant also, because if you're walking around life and your hair looks terrible, I mean, some people might comment. And if you're egoic in any way or vain in any way, you're going to go, oh, and it's going to affect you a lot, right? But if you don't actually care what your hair's doing, you go, ha ha, yeah, that's right. My hair's sticking up. Or whatever, So it's, the difference is really personal. Very personal. And as all of us start either supporting or kind of taking on, the full on, this land is going to be my frequency. So you own it, right? That energy, and this here, the shaman shack, for example, has the collective energy of us, right? If the frequency of the shaman shack is a combination of all of us, that's supported, that make sure it's running properly, that's welcoming or not welcoming, to the different individuals. Because we don't dictate that, actually. They dictate it themselves. It's like what can happen is what we can bring forth. And how we view it or how we perceive it or how we experience it, that's us. That's us personal stuff. So the bad hair day and the good hair day down the street, I feel it deeply. But then after about 30 seconds of being on one side or the other, I forget all about it. It's gone, right? And there is no judgment around it. Why would there be judgment about somebody cutting a little bunch of hair at the end of their roots, Well, not roots, the ends, It doesn't actually. But then, as a collective, we can start looking, observing maybe, with a zero, on how we consume. What do we consume? How do we consume it? How do we create it? Because I can tell you now that the other timeline that I'm familiar with, we are great consumptions of everything, right? If you think that we're consumed here You have no idea. Because over that side, we consume a lot. So like paper, for example, so much paper, or plastic, so much plastic, you know, and everything. But there's a very distinct difference between how we create it, how we create these things, and the energy we spend on it. How do we impact the world with it, and how we dispose of it, right? Which basically is completely different to how we do it here. So it's almost like we got one piece of information consumed, but we didn't get the rest. Right? And it's not something we have to fix as a group here, but we can certainly observe it as something healthy. Consumption is not evil. Consumption is a part of a process. And what is the rest of the process? And how do we can become open to that coming into the human collective and it spontaneously start happening all over the world. Oh, did you know that? Blah, blah, blah. You can do blah, blah, blah. And all you have to do is blah, blah, blah. And it's boom, right? Same with free energy or 0 point energy. Same with the other things. It's all about frequency and that stepping into that co-creative excitement of working with Gaia and other people of different planets and animals and trees and grass and plants and insects and all that, and becoming willing to not just embody it, but become open to receiving that.
There's so many solutions that already exist that are sitting on the shelf on this planet.
Yeah.
And then there's all those on the shelf on all the other planets too. So it really comes down to what I'm learning from our collective is just that you learn to visualize and create, and that's what releases the solutions to. For instance, they made the best plastics and oils out of hemp back when hemp was legal. Mm-hmm. It wasn't out of petroleum, so we don't have to keep doing that. So it could easily recycle. And of course, the millions of other solutions that are sitting on the shelf. So our dreams the pieces are already sitting there waiting for us to allow them to come into manifestation and collective. Yeah. And it feels like with this group, very strongly, that you all are allowing that to happen.
We are.
As a spirit. I mean, if I take myself out and I'm looking in as an observer, it really sees that, boy, this is the what do you call it, the way showers over the energy.
Yeah, the path
makers.
The
path makers that allow that to get started.
Yeah. And
it'll pick up speed, of course, but kudos to everybody who's lending their energy to high frequency manifestation.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, that was it.
Yeah, that was very nice.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So consumption
is
is not evil.
What?
Consumption is not evil.
No, it's what we do with it, or how we manage to get there. It's not. It's like toddlers. It's not something we have the full data on.
Yeah. I like that. Reminds me of the money exercise. Money is not evil.
Right. Yeah. But I remember in the other timeline, when I came to this one, I learned about the energy footprint or something. Oh, well, over there is minus numbers, right? And these massive, massive cities that are on the ocean, and then they lift up if there's bad weather coming. And when they lift up, you all the engineers go under it to fix everything, and to look at all the animals that live down there. It's like massive ecosystems under the cities, massive, which supports Gaia. So not Gaia, but supports Gaia supporting us. Mm-hmm. So it's way minus numbers on that consumption. Way minus, not like 1 minus, how they measure it here, the carbon footprint, whatever they might call it. it's almost like the idea is there, the data is correct, but it's being manipulated in the wrong way by people who just want to exploit that knowledge and that knowing. In the 80s, we brought children to pick up their garbage. You have to pick up your garbage. You can't throw garbage on the floor, right? And kids were obsessed with it. Immediately became obsessed. You tiny little kid, you tell it to, and they become obsessed over it. Why? Because they know that is something essential in us. You don't just throw your garbage anywhere. You pick it up. But then what happens to it? So they invented all these recycling centers, which is a tiny little bit of what you do. It's not the end. Right? So it's like that. It's almost we're almost kind of feeling it. We know it. We know how to do this. We know how to have a heaven on earth. But the bits of information is just cut off because of that paradigm we had to disconnect, right?
So when you were trimming the berry bushes, did you, and you talked about, like the hair, were you also tapping into the root systems of the plants and the trees, and could you feel their identity was equal or more in their roots as it compared to the surface, or
it was equal.
Equal.
Yeah, it was equal.
Because you'll never stop a berry as long as the roots are in there.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was equal. It was the same. It was like, even if you cut the berries off the entire continent, they exist now all over the world, and to them it would be just, I had a little shave. I had a shave there, but it doesn't really go away.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder how much they appreciate being pruned and trained.
They love it.
Like a rose.
Yeah.
Great.
They love it.
Yeah, because it's interaction.
Yeah.
Appreciation.
Yeah. And the little trees, the little huckleberry trees that are now got light and air, because a lot of them were half dead, right? That are now free from all the blackberries and all the other one. Can't remember the other plant that takes over everywhere in this area. Salal, yeah. They were going, this is so cool, thanks, It's like, this is nice. But again, it's like, this is nice at the tip end of your hair. It feels really good. It's like, okay, so what do we do? And for our perspective is, we're going to make huckleberry jam and huckleberry juice and this and this. So we have all these plants, right? It's a little bit of that energy. But yeah, blackberry bushes, they love it. Even the ones, when I was cutting them back, they were kind of saying, can you do that down there? Because we're overgrown and we're stuck with each other. So we need some oxygen here, All right? And I don't know about that. That's somebody else's property. I don't know if I can go there and, clean you up. Because in their natural environment, I have no idea where they come from. Maybe it's a different planet that we're talking about. Maybe somewhere else on Earth. But in their natural environment, they have animals and insects and creatures that will eat all the dead stuff from the blackberry bushes. Right? And as I was cutting blackberry sticks that were this thick, right? It was saying, why don't you have to keep me. If you keep me, you can make tea and make this and the other. Medicines for this and whatever, supportive of that, vitamin C and also this. I'm like, I have to Google that. I don't believe you. Maybe you just want to hang around so I don't burn you or something. I don't know about this. But I haven't checked it, right? But it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Dan said, we can put all this stuff through a shredder. And all the berry bushes, each little piece is like throwing a seed in the ground.
Because I told Dan, can you bring up the shredder so we can put all these little sticks through? And the blackberry bushes says, yeah.
Maybe they're not included. The word that came to my mind as you're describing some of the energy stuff there was Eden. We're going to create Eden again.
Nice.
This is for the whole planet. That's just a tiny little spot of it. But that's our energy and that's what we carry with us.
That's what starts growing.
Yeah.
The small spot.
Yeah.
Well, we can all do our bit with the impact that we have. We've got Fossil Beach, we have our own properties, we have obviously the Shaman Shack.
You have a great blank palette. It's your yard.
I know, I can't wait. And I have muscle coming too. Thank goodness.
Brilliant.
So could you go back to the observation for a second? I'm trying to remember what it was that you said we could observe, and it's flittering away.
The whole process of usage of materials, the consumption.
Should we do one? Should we observe for 5 minutes?
I don't think 5 minutes is gonna do it. Usually you just take it on and then you do it.
Okay.
And you just look at it, allow the universe to look through your eyes. But it's not one of those 5 minutes meditation type things or whatever, you know. It's like a long term. But we can commit maybe for the next week. Look at it together, observe it.
Okay.
It'll be interesting. It's very exciting.
Should we share our recordings in the community channel?
Sure, yeah. Sounds good.
Right,
now we're done.
I think it's interesting too, because with consumption in particular, I think it's been really villainized,
Yes.
right, in the last few decades
Mhm.
or more.
Mm-hmm.
And like materialism feels a part of that. It's like you're bad if you want things or you
Yes.
have things.
Yeah.
And more than what you can just eat right now, let's
Right.
say.
Right.
You know? So it's
Isn't
really
that fascinating?
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like
And it's all
one of
based
those
on
things-
lack.
Yeah.
It
And
is.
disconnect from Gaia.
Yeah.
And that's why she wants us to consume, because she's full of fruit.
Yeah.
And if you don't eat the fruit, it rots.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you see the
As long
link?
as there's no clutter.
Yeah, but that's for
Yeah.
us, right?
But that's a
That's
good
for us.
preference.
Yeah.
You don't want, I mean, there's a point where abundance becomes excess, and that it lowers the frequency of the reality we're experiencing. If you get too much stuff, you know what I mean?
Well, it can
For
be,
me.
it can be translated into, you go to a beautiful beach and it's covered in garbage, right? That's the translation at a human level. Why did that happen? Because we don't have the full connection on how to be consumers and how to use the physical universe for our benefit.
It's almost like a cycle and a flow thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like, right?
You know, there's hoarders too, you know. I mean, you don't want to hang on to the past. You want to experience the future without the burden of dragging all this. That's the way my life is. I just don't want to drag all this stuff around from the past. Just look at all the new experiences that are waiting, you know.
You must have gypsy in you, because that's the energy from the nomads. And there's energies that are different.
The what? Nomas?
Nomads. The nomad energy frequency is like you're always looking at a new place with new things.
Oh,
and
nomad.
Nomad,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's other energies and other cultures, right? People build castles to last thousands of years, for example, and full of stuff. And there's the native peoples. Most of them won't throw anything away because, you know, that's material. You need to reuse it. We don't throw stuff away. And that's also part of that. Those are also
Culture.
part of it. Not just culture, but it's actually less of a consumption, right? It's less consumption because you're not just going to throw your fridge away you're not going to throw your fridge away and buy a new one.
Yeah.
They keep the old one in case the new one breaks, and they have all the parts. Do you see? So it's like when they used to hunt a whale here. They would keep it and use every single part of the whale, including the bones. Everything was used. And that's part of that consumption energy. You use everything. And part of the whole thing about garbage in reservations is a big deal, right? Why does that happen? Because the new materials that people consume are not designed for that. They're not designed for it to be used, all of the pieces used. It's designed for it to break down, for you to throw it away, send it to the garbage can, whatever's, and get a new one. That's how it's designed. But the two hasn't met yet. They haven't merged yet. So they're still keeping things to be used, but they're useless.
Yeah.
They're
Even
useless.
though they won't work.
They're not going to work. They're useless. Do you see? But that energy is still there.
I
Right.
guess I was referring to us consciously choosing our consumption as an experience, conscious joy, light, love experience, as opposed to having to control us, like an addiction. Hoarding is sometimes called an addiction, or whatever, but it's just
I think there's
conscious choice.
a link missing, both from hoarding and from throwing everything away. There's a link missing in our human creative and consuming and using and accepting and discarding. There's links missing that manifest as throw everything away or keep everything.
Yeah, I don't want to throw everything away. I just want to have the time to appreciate everything that I have without it being buried.
Yeah.
So it's not appreciated there. I can't even see it. Don't even know where it is.
I've
So I do that sometimes.
I've known hoarders, like real hoarders, that you walk into their house and the whole place is full of magazines up to the ceiling, and every single dish they've ever used is still there, right? And those people, if you move one tiny little empty box or wrapper, chocolate wrapper that's behind the sofa from 20 years ago, they feel it. And they go nuts.
They can feel it.
They feel it and they go nuts. How dare you touch it? How dare you move it? Where is it? I need to get it back.
They're
Because
really
they feel
identifying
it.
with their stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I know when things go missing or get moved in my house. That's Kara. She knows.
Yeah, she told me.
It's not hoarder status, but I'm
Yeah.
just like, Kara, did you, my ring, all these things. I know right away. I'm like,
Yeah.
but hey,
Wow.
did you move that?
Yeah.
You need to tell me if you're going to move it.
Landlord like that, and I said to him, "Oh, I bought a vacuum cleaner." And he goes, "Oh, good. Now we have 8."
Yeah. I had friends who had Samsung like appliances in their kitchen, and in 1 week, like the fridge broke, and then the dishwasher, and then the stove, and then the microwave, like all Samsung. They bought them all at the same time, and they all just died. You know, it was like a clockwork, right?
Mm.
And I said something to my sister who works for Samsung, and she's in their quality control department, so she knows about the life and all this stuff. And she's just like,
They had an expiry date.
it was almost like they were like timed to break at that time, and she's
And
like,
inside she was saying,
yeah.
yes.
I don't know if she's saying yes, but it was probably more like she's not allowed to say.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not surprised. We know that.
The
That's what
plants and
happens.
plants and essence, they do that.
Yeah.
When I bought all my those things for my house in Sacramento, the guy was selling us the insurance part or the guarantee part or whatever, extended guarantee. He says, well, this stuff comes in with 5 years of guarantee. He says, yeah, get 6. Get the extra 2. I'm just telling you now, and I can't tell you why, but you get that extra 2 years. We're like, oh, are they designed to break down after 5 years? He says, do the day. Your guarantee will run out and everything will break down. So how is that even possible? I mean, the technology, are you kidding me? So just do it. You know, it's only so much money extra and you're going to thank me in 5.5 years. It's okay. Sure enough, 5.5 years. First the fridge, then the dishwasher, then the oven and the microwave all went one after the other. And we had the extra year, so they just had to replace it for new ones. So then we bought the guarantee again for the next bit.
Yeah.
And it was just being moved like that.
Wow.
It's like insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
I think it would feel much better to consume things if I had an understanding emotionally of where they were all going and where they had all come from. It would feel so much better than what we do now. I mean, if I felt like, oh yeah, I know where this fits in the cycle.
And what does that express? Expresses connection. That's what we're talking about. Connecting.
Even the connection, it's like the things that we had were created for a particular type of experience. Not the experience that it's going to break, so then you have to buy more and you're going to keep coming back and spending money, but for the experience of you're going to make really amazing meals on this stovetop and you're going to really enjoy it. And it's made for that, right? Like, that's such a different
It's so nice. And it's going to last
quality.
forever. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it's going to become like a staple in your family home, and everyone's going to remember those meals that you used to cook over the stovetop with your grandma and then blah, 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 you know? That's such a different quality. Yeah.
I was just thinking back, 100, 110 years ago, your oranges would come in a crate. People used to do things with crates. You could even burn it if you want to. Your flour would come in a sack. People always had things to do with, just take a flour sack. You can strain it or you can use it for something. Things would come in glass bottles. And we always had glass bottles around. And glass doesn't matter. You can just bust it up and throw it in a hole. It doesn't sand. So, or you could, bring back. Yeah. So that's the kind of feeling right there, is that stuff comes and it goes, and the delivery man can come and go, and you can still be consuming like crazy, but you don't have to have everything in a plastic wrapper. They do have the plastic, what is it? Some kid found some amoeba or something, or parasite that eats plastic.
That eats it.
That eats it. So
Yeah,
I don't know if it's all plastics, but some plastics.
Yeah, it seems like there's
And then what
They
happens
even
to the
said
amoeba?
some layer that.
Right.
after the plastic's over.
It's their
I
food.
don't know, but I think they were going to use it to eat the big
The
field
thing
of
how
plastic in the ocean, that island of plastic. They're going to put it there.
Yeah, there
I
was
think
also,
the human genius has already solved 99% of the problems. So it's just a matter of letting them
out of the bag.
let them be released into the.
They develop machines that you take plastic bottles and put it in to it, and it does something and comes out of liquid form, the original petrochemical back.
Alistair's doing that right
Started
now.
with stove.
Yeah, it's not working.
It's there.
Jammed up his tractor.
We can find it and get it. So plastic wouldn't be an issue, glass is not an issue, it gets remelted back into components and used again.
Thank you for sharing. For sharing. For sharing. For sharing.